Hi, I'm Morgan Doremus with RT Book Reviews, and we're at the RT Book Lovers Convention. It's our 30th anniversary, and I am super excited to have Sarah M. Anderson sitting here with me.
Thank you.
And one of the reasons I'm so excited about this is you are an award winner this year.
I am award winning. My mother is so proud, I tell you.
And A Man of Privilege, it's winning the RT Reviewer's Choice Award for Best Harlequin Desire this year.
Yeah.
And A Man of Privilege, I don't know how I can properly convey how awesome this book was and how different from all the other ones out there.
Well, I will definitely cop to the different part, because I don't think most people do things with heroines that I do.
Right. She's a former drug addict, and she did get into a little bit of prostitution when she was young, abused, neglected. It was a bad situation.
Which I think is something that a lot of people do fall into. But the thing is that she was able to pull herself out of that, and that was where her moral character was. You'll pull yourself up by the bootstraps. No, I strap my books. So so that was where that she demonstrated that she was a character that we could really sympathize with, was that she was able to take charge of her life when she became of age and change her direction and be what she wanted to be, not what other people wanted her to be.
And I think rather than this really quick transition, she works at it. She works at it every day until she gets to be the person who she wants, until she's proud of herself and what she's accomplished. And as a reader, we kind of feel that same pride that, look at what she's done. It's not like I woke up one morning and I got a job and somebody wrote me out a check, so I got a new car and a new this, and it doesn't happen like that. She works every single day. One of the things, and I don't know why I remember this so well, because I read the book a while ago, but I remember so well, is when she does get back up on her feet, she has her teeth, because she was a neglected child, she has bad teeth and she was a drug user, and one of the things she does is she goes to the dentist and she makes sure that she has really great teeth.
She does.
And it's an outward showing I'm now taking care of myself. Yep. It was such a self-loving thing, even though it's a physical. For her, it was very emotional, and I was like, I've never like read like that in a book before, something like that happening.
She admires the hero's teeth and thinks someone spent a lot of money on those, because she would know. She knows exactly how much money her teeth are worth. And she also had many of her tattoos. She had a lot of markings and scars on her removed, but she had kept one on her back, and that was to remind her of where she had been, so that she would never go back there. So she had a lot of laser surgery on her skin to change herself, but she didn't want to forget, because she didn't want to backslide. So she kept that one tattoo as a reminder of who she had been, so that she would never go back.
And her name is Maggie Eagleheart,
yes.
And the Eagleheart part shows her Native American ancestry.
Yes.
She is Native American. She's on a reservation, and this kind of going back to learning about that and connecting with her roots is another really important part of her evolution as a character.
Because as a child, she was more or less neglected and abused on many different levels, and ran away to this life. So she was never really felt a part of the tribe. So she had actually had a different last name, which escapes me at the moment. She had a different last name, but she had taken on this name Eagleheart to symbolize that she was returning back to the warrior, the person that she should be, not the person that everyone else had thought she was.
Okay, so the book is named A Man of Privilege. So tell me about your hero, who is literally a man of privilege.
It is no false advertising here. He is James Carlson, and he's a blue-blooded lawyer. He comes from wealthy, DC, powerful, political. His father is the Secretary of Defense in this story, and and his, so there's a world of power and privilege. His mother had the money, his father had the power, and so they detest each other, but they stay together because they're a power couple. And so he was more or less raised by his nannies, the immigrant nannies who come in, and so that's where his sense of moral center comes from. So even though he has all this wealth and power available to him, he chooses to be a special prosecutor for the government instead of being a private lawyer, prosecuting major cases. And so that is how he proves that he is worth more than just a pawn that his parents sometimes try to treat him as. He is a pawn that they will use for their own gain, and he resists against that. Instead of running for office, he is a prosecutor.
Yeah, I was going to say it would be very easy for him to say, hey, Dad, hook me up, get either a government job or work his way up through politics. And on the cover, he is kind of sitting at that desk with like the White House man,
the White House behind him.
And it would be very easy for him to kind of, climb the ladder in that world. But instead, he says, no, I'm going to go to an area which is economically depressed, where bad things are happening, and start to clean it up. And you really admire that about him, that he's taking the hard road. Like, Maggie was handed the hard road. She had no choice about it. He goes after that because he knows he can make a difference. And I love that about him.
Yeah, he really is, despite the fact that he can be, privileged and even obnoxious if he chooses to be, because his mother makes him so, he chooses to be the good guy. He fights the good fight. So he wants to fight for people like Maggie, and that's why we love him, because he won't leave anybody behind.
So tell me a little bit. We do have Maggie in this one, and she is Native American. So the cowboys and Indians are a little bit of a theme in your writing.
Yes.
Tell me, like, growing up, was that something you were around, or how did you really become involved with that kind of world?
Well, I come from special people. So both of my parents were history teachers, and instead of going to Disney World, we went to Gettysburg for a reenactment. So we always took off the beaten path. So I've been to private powwows. We know people who know people who know people. We've been to private powwows on reservations that were not open to the public, but we had an inn. And those were things that we did on summer vacation instead of going on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. So I also had the little girl's love of horses. And the moment I discovered horses and the Indians, the Lakota Indians are a horse people. And it spoke to me, and my parents were very encouraging of that. So we went to the Battle of Little Bighorn, and we've been to the reservations, and so they encouraged that as something for me. And then I went to college and discovered Jane Austen and Charles Dickens, and I spent a great deal of time in Victorian novels, and I forgot about these guys, which is a crying shame. And so,
not for long. You didn't forget for long.
And so when I started writing, I thought I was going to do women's literary fiction with strong romantic elements, and sooner or later someone wound up out west with a cowboy who was also an Indian, and that book clicked, and the books after that clicked, and that they were funny and they were snarky, and there wasn't literary fiction.
So wait, tell me the book. I haven't read the book yet, with the Indian who's also a cowboy.
The original one will be out in August from Sam Hain, and it's called Masked Cowboy. It took a lot of revisions to get him publishable, but he's a cowboy. He's an Indian who's a cowboy who wears a mask, and so he's everything in one delicious package. So he takes off his shirt a lot too. So, but those books worked for me. So I had a basis of knowledge from my unusual childhood family vacations that focused on, I had all this knowledge kind of somewhere in my brain. And when I started thinking about it again, it came back out. I still check my sources. I have translations in my book. I make sure that those translations are correct or acceptable substitutes, because I'm not actually a Lakota Indian, and I want to make sure that I do justice to the tribe. I don't want anyone mad at me. So, but cowboys and Indians are something in America that we feel like we're losing, and there's a certain romanticism to them that we want to hold on to. The man who gets down and does it, fixes it with his own hands and makes it right himself instead of lawsuits or whatever. And so that's the kind of thing that I think really appeals to reader. It's a man who takes care of business himself.
Now, the newest book, I know you have a new book releasing. Can you tell me, is that a man who gets down to business?
Oh, yeah. This is my new twist on cowboys and Indians. It's bikers and Indians. And so it's, if you're out on South Dakota, where a lot of the Lakota reservations are, the other major thing in South Dakota, beside Mount Rushmore, is Sturgis, where the Harley Choppers have their annual convention. So there are bikers all over South Dakota all summer long. So I thought, bikers and Indians, let's do that. So we don't have as many horses in this series. We do have choppers. So this is, the first book is Ben Bolton, Straddling the Line, and it's a 3-book series with 3 brothers who have their own custom chop shop. They make motorcycles. Ben handles the money. He's the businessman of the family. And then we'll have Billy, who is the one who actually builds the motorcycles. That'll be followed by Bobby, who's the marketing genius. He likes to think of himself. He has the most work to be redeemed. So the first 2 books, they do meet women off of a nearby reservation. So Ben, a woman named Josie White Plume, comes to his store asking for donations. She wants shop tools for a new school that she's opening, and he won't give her any because it cuts into the bottom line. But then they run into each other again at a bar where he's a drummer and she just came to hear the band. And so sparks really start to fly.
So not only is he a biker, but he's also
a drummer.
Oh, come on.
And a drummer. With an MFA, because I like him smart. No, not MFA, MBA. With an MBA, because I like him smart. So he can't get her out of his mind. He tracks her down, sees what she's doing, and realizes that he can contribute he can help her out in ways that don't necessarily involve cutting a check. So he rounds up some old shop equipment that they got lying around and takes it out and, you know, wins her undying love and admiration. And so they forge a relationship, but they're both trying to find their place in the world. And that's why the book's called Straddling the Line.
Straddling the Line,
because
right.
she's actually half white. So she's half white and half Indian, and she doesn't quite fit in either world. And he's a member of this really hardcore biker family, but he's a numbers guy. He's an accountant, basically. And so he's trying to find his place where does he belong in this family, in his business, and where does she belong between the white world and the Indian world? And so that's their conflict, and they help each other find where they belong, of course. So
that sounds fantastic.
Well, I hope so.
Okay, well, I want to say congratulations on your big win for your RT Reviewer's Choice Award. And before I let you go, though, I have to mention one thing, and that is I don't follow you on Twitter. I stalk you on Twitter. Because for anybody that's interested in hot postmen and squirrels doing naughty things, not necessarily in the same tweet.
Oh.
Like, you've got some X-rated squirrels outside that you...
We do. Well, my office opens up into, there's a magnolia tree and a maple tree, and so I look out, and that's where I find inner peace and watch the mailman come and hope it's the one with the nice biceps. So I do keep it, but, you know, spring is in the air, mating calls are happening, and so sometimes the nature just takes its course, and that's what we are witness to. It's very inspirational.
Yeah. So what is your Twitter handle so other people can follow you?
It is Sarah M. Anderson 1, and there's an H on Sarah. So Sarah M. Anderson 1.
And I highly recommend, because you're always part of Tweet Hearts, our weekly column where we pick our best tweets, our favorite tweets of the week, and you're always on that because I find you hilarious. So in between the books, we still get the Sarah voice.
Yeah, and you know, Twitter is a little crazier than maybe Facebook is, so yes, a little less censored on Twitter.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.